I see only one person raising the hand. No, nobody else? Great. That means and that gives me the confidence that we can stay awake for the next powerful session that's going to happen on this very stage. And for the same, may I request Mr. Anup Deb from Cortex MSSP Sales and Alliances-JAPAC, Palo Alto Networks, Melbourne, to kindly join us on the stage, who is an accomplished cybersecurity professional with over 2 decades of industry experience delivering consulting and technology services to clients and partners across the Asia-Pacific region. And Anup is a skilled cybersecurity sectoral trends, vulnerability patterns, pulling together global scaled distributed security models, advanced analytics and cyber fusion outcomes. Ladies and gentlemen, may I request you all to kindly put your hands together and help me to welcome Mr. Anup Deb.
Is this the slide? Okay. So thank you very much for your time. First of all, I wanted to thank Shushabhan. I know I saw your this event happening here in Bangalore, and since I was here and you were giving me an opportunity to speak, is indeed something that I will always remember. I did speak in a number of your other events, but back then during post-COVID days. So a bit of my introduction. I work for a company called Palo Alto Networks, and I look after the Cortex portfolio of the solution, which is more on SecOps, AI for machine learning, and that we operate within a SOC. So that's my role. I kind of build up practices on the services deliverables underpinned by the technology of AI, right? So that's what I do. So I'm not going to spend too much. I thought my this last panel discussion was very informative, given that CERT-In is a very important component of our data governance structure by the government of India, and I'm sure we will have data protection coming in also very shortly. But this is indeed very helpful, and some of the AI means can also be helpful in terms of responding to the initiatives that are being guided. So, for example, if you need a breach notification, perhaps an automated tool can be enabled within the SOC operations that an incident is classified as a breach, and in an automated way, an email can go to the CERT-In team, right? And thereby mitigating some of the risk components that are there. I'm going to skip a few slides because I know we are half an hour late. So as we move, but I wanted to bring in one of the slides here as what is SOAR, right? I mean, people are now talking about data log retention, and then how do I use this data for remediation, right, for our response. So when we are kind of got this from the enterprise strategy group, one of the data points of within a SOC, what are the difficulties that a CISO would face and a SOC analyst would face, right? And few of them are outlined here. I'm going to touch upon few things, that the volume and sophistications of threats are becoming very high, right? That's one. The second is that the attack surface has grown 16%. In some of the earlier conversation, people talked about the attack surface management. And given that we live in a world where there are several transformations happening, right? One is the digital transformation. We see a lot of workforce transformation also happening as we kind of move into the post-COVID era of life, right? And we have got to live in a hybrid environment. The third transformation that I see within the region is on supply chain transformations that are happening, because through a supply chain there could be attacks coming in as well, right? So these are some of the challenges that we see in the industry, right? And more so, there is always a skill shortage, right? And how do you use AI as a means to be able to cover the gaps of the cyber skill shortage that you have in the industry, right? So before we get into the SOAR component of it, I kind of just step back and see the challenges that a security team would struggle with, right? And few of them are highlighted here. We have too many security tools now. With all these compliances in place, you will have a SIM, you will have, you will have your own firewalls, you will have different disparate systems and tools to manage, and thereby making it even more challenging for SOC operation to manage and maintain, right? And then to complete investigations, it takes a lot of time as well. And with so much amount of regulatory requirements, how do you respond to any incident that happens? And thereby a SOAR platform can help, right? So this is I've kind of taken a snapshot of from a SOC to see what they do, while what does an analyst do on a day-to-day basis, right? They are using a lot of tools, right? And therefore, you will see highlighted few of the points that are mentioned here. Disparate alert tool sources, lack of defined processes, repetitive and manual tasks, and therefore you see a lot of attrition also happening within L1, L2, L3, and service providers having a lot of difficult time, right? And lack of product interconnectivity is another point of a problem that we see. So without a SOAR, and SOAR perhaps would help in addressing number of solutions to this, right? Disparate alert sources, you can bring those alerts in, can triage those alerts, bring in a lot more defined processes in terms of your incident responses, right? One of the things that when you look at automating your processes within a SOC, do look at what Gartner has to talk about, right? Just do not look at just as an automation tool, but use automation through various forms of orchestration, right? And in a SOC, you will need to have people, process, and technology all put together and drive your automations. So few things that are now vendors are coming in. A lot of vendors, I'm not talking on behalf of my company here, but Gartner has indicated that when you look at a SOAR tool to be deployed within a SOC operation, do ensure that you have a very solid foundation of threat intelligence coming into the platform, right? And threat intelligence will also help you to mitigate some of your requirements around your regulatory requirements as well, right? So threat intelligence, orchestration, or to apply automation when there is a repeatable task, right? I can make it very simple, in a very simplistic way. If I have to say 2 + 2 is equal to, the result is always 4, right? I mean, it can't be 5. So if that task is a manual task, apply automation to those repeatability tasks for an L1 analyst. And the analyst then will be able to do much more value-added work. And thereby, it will also help him to be more interested to work on threat hunting or a highly deep dive investigations activities, rather than doing a repeatable task, right? So use SOAR as a platform. Do not automate something which is unknown. That is most dangerous. We do not know what will be the outcome. For example, if I understand it to be, if my people or processes and technology indicates that it is a malware, perhaps could be a malware kind of incident happening within your environment. The malware can be polymorphic in nature, right? It could turn out to be ransomware as well. And therefore, do not automate what you do not know. Automate what you know. This is something which one of the gentlemen that I work with called Bruce Nair, he's one of the cyber security gurus. Go and check him in Google. He always says that automate what you need to automate, what you know. Do not automate what you do not know, right? Another distinction, and Gartner does point out, we very loosely use the word called automation and orchestration together. Orchestration, automation becomes the same. But there is a distinction between orchestration and automation. Automation, and orchestration that is defined by Gartner says that, automation is basically a subset of orchestration. In an environment where you are using a SOP operation, it is always important to look at automation, orchestration on the overall aspect of your business, but automate some of the subsets of which is required. Right? This gives you an example of where we bring SOAR as a technology, as a workflow that allows you to take some decisions. Some of the decisions are to be taken by people. Right? For example, if I have got to look at a network port, and then I will not take an action unless I have an IT team to say yes or no. If I get an approval, then I can go about doing that action, right? So perhaps, therefore, you need that orchestration capability, bringing the decision tree where you have people, processes, and technology together, right? And so does become an extremely key component to it, right? Well, I will not go into this because I guess most of you are very matured. I have started promoting SOAR from 2017, where industry never adopted. I mean, people started SIM. But in most cases, it has now grown. People know what SIM is and what SOAR is in terms of the difference, right? But SIM and SOAR are not the same. Okay? And I've just taken one example of a life of an incident in order to show you where you use SOAR as a platform, right? And this is a combination of SIM. It could also be nowadays technologies like XDR complemented with it because you are using artificial intelligence to do threat hunting. Used as a process flow, and some of the tasks that you can do through SOAR platform would be, for example, incident creation, right? If I know the attributes, the characteristics of an alert and classify it to be, let's say, a phishing as an incident, I can automate it in a way, providing you assigning it to an analyst, and then also assigning a set of criticalities in it, right? Whether it's moderate, high, low, what is that level of incident, right? So you can automate a lot of tasks through this, right? And thereby, manual tasks can be replaced, right? The second area that we see a lot of automation happening is in terms of providing the SOAR platform to go and search for artifacts or indicators of compromise which are available through the threat intel platforms within that are available, right? For example, you may have virus total or recorded future or anomaly as threat intel feeds. So if you allow the SOAR platform can automatically, what an analyst does, would have to go through various tools in order to search for incidents. So you can allow the SOAR platform to trigger a set of tasks that can search that set of artifacts and come back with the results to your platform. And then with that platform, you can take a set of actions in terms of remediating and closing that incident. For example, if I have got to isolate a few set of endpoints within a network, I will be able to know that these artifacts are available within the endpoints. And so automatically, the SOAR platform can take that action, remediate, and close that incident. And perhaps you can give it back, close it back into an IT ticketing tool as well, right? So these are few things that we see happening in the industry, and whether developed countries or developing countries. And I've been very fortunate to have traveled to almost, before the pandemic, almost 100 SOCs. I've traveled to some of the very sensitive SOCs where people have to, our SOC centers have to deal with government data, very sensitive data. So people have initiated this as a part of their SOC technology deployments. So we'll see most of in Singapore, in most of the countries, we see most of the large banking customers or government customers have already started deploying this. This way, one of the things that also SOAR platform helps is that when you start closing this incident, it becomes a knowledge base for you. Just remember, when this becomes a knowledge base, now the analyst, L1 or L2 or L3 analyst goes away, but the knowledge, they generally take away that knowledge. And that's a big challenge for most who are CISOs who run a SOC operation. And so they can have this platform helping you to create that knowledge base that will help you in future as well, right? And that knowledge base can also be used as an incident reporting and a way to improve the process of your SIM. Now you go and ask any of the vendors who are providing SIM technology, and people within the SOC managing the SIM, it's a humongous and a very difficult task to create rules, build correlations. But this knowledge base of how you go about doing this can help you to tune your SIM and make it much more effective. Okay? So it says security process and detection improvement that you can build on. And it is iterative, right? So if this continues, your SIM becomes much more intelligent and you can use much more automation doing that. Okay, so I've got to pick a few use case, skip a few, but I'll use some of them where you use SOAR as a platform that helps you to ensure that you can implement it and in automated way take some actions and thereby reducing the alert noise that you have, right? So we see that within phishing, we see high alert volume, disjointed process, ever fast and growing attacks, right? So what do we do when we have to, when there is a SOAR approach for a phishing response, right? And phishing comprises of 90% of the attack that happens, right? So in an eddy of the infrastructure landscape, that's the easiest way of getting into an infrastructure. And so you can let the SOAR platform handle a lot of tasks here. Left-hand side is without a SOAR, which is a completely chaotic manual triage and working, right? And here with the SOAR platform, you could also happen that you can ingest an email, you can enrich it, you can go to a threat intel platform, you can run in a sandbox tool the phishing mail, the impact of that, and what are the verdicts out of it, whether it's benign, not, whatever be the result, and start escalating it to the set of people that you can do. This sort of task, if you have got to do it, it will be a tough task, and mostly in and day out, the team within the SOC analyst team would be doing this. This can be automated, and people are doing this automation as a matter of fact, right? The other is vulnerability management as well, right? I mean, I've just chosen a couple of one, but this one is something that we picked up from my company, but when you ingest vulnerability asset information from a vulnerability management tool, you can then enrich the entities, right? When you enrich entities, you mean enrich endpoints and CV data through relevant tools, right? And also you can build some vulnerability context, right? Check if there are diagnosis, consequence, remediations tied to a vulnerability, right? You can calculate a severity and then run a workflow that allows you to do this entire playbook. This can be done without any human person coming in and working on it, right? I was listening to some of the discussions around attack surface management. Now think about it, attack surface management, I think the person who moderated the session, I was pretty impressed with it in a sense that it also talked about assets lying within the internet, right? And so if you know that there are spin-ups of virtual machines that we often do, you can, and those are misconfigured virtual machines, you can allow those data to come into a SOAR platform. The SOAR platform can then go back to a vulnerability management tool like a Qualys or a Tenable or something else, and then it can run that scan, close that, bring it back to SOAR, and then update the asset management platform. Fully automated without any manual work done. And we'll see this more happening, right? SOAR has actually become now a part of what we call Cyber Fusion Center, and this is becoming the heart of of a tool or a technology, right? Because it includes technologies like threat intel, it includes technologies that really does actions and talks with the various tools that are there within any infrastructure, right? And this allows you to ingest data and then take some of the automatic remediation tasks, right? I'm going to skip a few, but here we had done some, started to doing some study in terms of how much amount of how much amount of savings that you can make out of a SOAR platform. And it's extremely difficult to have to build something like a tangible ROI out of platforms. But we were able to find out ways to work on it and some of the research that we have done. But one thing that I wanted to mention on the left-hand side is that most of the team, when you are investigating, you are spending your time on identifying, right? I mean, when in an incident response process, mostly traditionally what is to identify is the big problem, right? Investigate is another problem and then you remediate, right? So our study shows that mostly when in a threat hunting exercise, you will see people spending more time on identifying, less time in investigation, and more time in mitigation. The SOAR platform tries to help you in terms of reducing the identification period because it does a lot. It understands characteristics, it looks back into patterns and starts providing you with suggestions. That helps you to reduce the identification period and allows the analyst, the human mind cannot be taken out of this loop, right? Because that's the most important aspect, right? And that is used for more investigation. And therefore, the SOC analyst role then becomes more than L1 or L2, becomes more L3 type of job, doing investigation more. And then once you have done the investigation, you should take less time to mitigation. So that, again, an automation platform can help. Right? And we are using this automation tool, and we are also learning how to use automation, taking some of the principles of automation being applied into what you talked about, right, in terms of automobile industry. Now, I can think of in Melbourne, I drive a car with my hands or without in the steering, goes on with the red signal, can stop, and there is a distance it maintains. If there's a car at 120, I go at 120. If the car reduces speed to 100, automatically the car will detect and reduce it. Your car will also start driving at 100. But applying that automation in India will be disastrous, right? So in a world of cybersecurity where there is so much amount of activity happening, use some of those automation skills. That's my point of view, right? I mean, I can't, in India, I do not think that I can drive in any lane without my hands out, right? In fact, if somebody was driving a Tesla, even he doesn't have a brake. So I was with my friend. I sat down in the Tesla and said, where is the brake? He said, there's no brake. I said, how do I drive? They said, when you accelerate, it will go. And when you leave your acceleration, it will automatically decide how much I have to pump the brake. So automatically it does. So amazing. And automobile industry, the way it's kind of advanced in terms of automation are beyond imagination. Our endeavor as vendors, as software vendors, just not from Palo Alto, but most of the software vendors are in that approach of building an autonomous SOC. Time, it will still take time. You've got to be pragmatic, but this is happening, right? Nevertheless, the other point around it is that it's now immediate benefits out of it, right? When you do manual way of work, if you do a semi-automated way of work, and you do an automated workflow, there are certain amount of time spent weekly, number of incidents, how much you can save time and thereby save cost. Right? Cost factors may be different in different parts of the world, but we have just taken this to an average cost based on Asia Pacific. One last slide I'm going to share is a step. What can you do in SOAR? Well, you can talk about automation, right? We have taken one case with a pharmaceutical company which has got, which was ransomed, had a ransomware attack, and then finally they were also into an incident response program with us, and they gave us the opportunity, and it happened during the ransomware happened during the COVID time because they were manufacturing the COVID vaccines. And some of the nation states would attack in order to get the IPs out of the pharmaceutical companies, right? People wanted to be the first to start manufacturing the vaccine and to be rolled out. But in that process, we got one case where we did. There was an escalation of an alert from SIM to EDR to have any of the next generation firewalls. Generally, before and after SOAR is something that you can look at, right? You take escalating a system, if you would take in 5 minutes, it would take 10 minutes. 10 seconds in doing so in a SOAR platform. Similarly, when you identify affected assets, and you want to do, if there's an assets that needs to be identified, and if you do a CMDB or a Active Directory lookup, you can automate it and find out the CMDB details, AD details, get that details in. If you're going to do it manually, it will take some time. You can do it in seconds, right? So the results are becoming much more faster because the faster the automation tools are becoming, you can get the results much more faster. So step by step, right? Checking IOCs, correlating historical incidents and data, manual enrichment, incident tracking, escalation to a SIM, and then reporting as well, right? You can create reports automatically that can come in from the data that is available, right? Use some of the tools. I would suggest that if this is a starting point, these are good starting points to start with. I'll leave my presentation back with Sushobhan and team. You can please take it up. Take that as a part of your guidelines and use some of the use cases that will help you. With that, I would say when I showed you a flow without a SOAR tool, and see if you apply a SOAR tool, you completely have an automated process as a workflow running in, and you are sitting in your SOC and looking at your dashboard and being able to monitor, modify wherever you want, intervene wherever you want, but it becomes a seamless way of managing and SOC operation, right? With that, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to thank you.